Before you begin adjusting the volume of your clips, you need to listen to your project all the way through. Pay special attention to areas where the audio level from one track competes with the audio level on another track. To make the process more accurate, your edit system should be connected to a pair of studio-grade speakers placed at ear height on each side of your primary viewing display. To get a sense of the contents of each audio track, you can listen to each track independently by soloing it. Click the solo button for the dialogue track. Soloing a track temporarily silences all the other audio tracks. Press the spacebar and you should only hear the on-camera subject. Right now, I'm in a... You can solo the tracks as they play in real time. So for example, you can solo the wind sound effects track, and that track's audio will be played out to your speakers along with the dialogue. So right now, I'm in a ghost town called Nelson, Nevada. Let's turn off soloing for both tracks. There's also a mute button for each track. The mute button does the opposite of solo, in that it temporarily silences the selected track while the other tracks play at their normal volumes. We used the mute button in the previous lesson to silence the dialogue in music tracks. Listening to your sound, while very important, is still subjective. You need a way to objectively evaluate the levels coming out of your system. In the upper right toolbar, click the Mixer button to reveal the mixer in a panel to the right of the timeline. The Mixer panel presents all your tracks in a vertical orientation called channel strips. To see all your tracks, resize the panel by dragging the left edge. Play back the project and watch the meters. So right now, I'm in a ghost town called Nelson, Nevada. It's also known for alien activity. For the past 80 years, meters are a visual guide for helping you make volume adjustments. Move the play to the start of the last pink duration marker and play from there. Notice that the meters present an average volume level for each track, with the peaks displayed as thin horizontal lines. At this stage, your primary concern is that all of your dialogue, music, and effects are at a consistent level. So that, of course, begs the question, what should my levels be for each track? The audio meters in the edit page are what's called RMS peak meters, which stands for root mean square. It's basically a mathematical averaging system to measure the relative volume of your clips. The meter displays volume on a decibel scale, from -50 dBFS at the bottom to a maximum of 0 dBFS at the top. All audio that exceeds 0 on the scale will be clipped, which is to say, distorted. dBFS stands for decibel full scale. So 0 dBFS is the full or maximum level the system is capable of outputting. So the decibel scale you see on the meters is relative to that. So for example, -5 on the scale is -5 dB below system max, and -10 is 10 dB below the system max, and so on. As far as where each of your tracks should be averaging on the meters, normal spoken dialogue should average around -12 dBFS on the meters. Sound effects typically have a wider dynamic range than voice tracks, and should therefore average between -10 and -30 dBFS. Music can potentially have the widest dynamic range, and should fall between -20 and -30 dBFS. While these guidelines are a good starting place, your ears are the final arbiter of what sounds best. During audio mixing, you'll target each clip and set its level appropriate to the type of sound it contains. So for dialogue, it should play out of your system at roughly the same level. Once the dialogue levels are in hand, you move on to adjusting your effects and music clips. At this stage, you need not be concerned with comparing the dialogue levels to the music or sound effects levels because you're only mixing on a clip-by-clip basis. Once we get to the lessons on the Fairlight page, we'll deal with track level mixing. Let's start by working with the dialogue. Press Home to move the playhead to the beginning of the timeline. Then solo the track. Press Shift-Z to see all the clips. Let's play the dialogue from the second interview clip forward while watching the meters. So right now, the dialogue is averaging between -15 and -20 on the meters, with occasional peaking at -10. While these levels are pretty close, they really should be averaging between -10 and -15 dBFS. One way to deal with this is to normalize the audio. With normalization, you set a target audio level for your clips that keeps all of the peaks within that target volume level. Hold down the Command key, or Control key on Windows, and select just the dialogue clips. Right-click on the audio waveform of any selected clip Then from the menu, choose Normalize Audio Levels. The Normalization Mode menu allows you to choose from a variety of loudness normalization algorithms, specific to various international standards. We'll leave the selection at the default. Now we'll enter a target loudness we want the peak volume of every selected clip to match. Let's set this to -2.0 dBFS. This means that no matter how loud an audio peak is for a particular audio clip, the volume will never exceed -2 dBFS on the meters. If you have multiple clips selected, as I do here, the relative settings ensures that all selected clips are treated as one clip, so that the highest peak level of all selected clips is used to define the adjustment. This is the best option if you have a series of clips, such as a dialogue recording, where the levels are consistent with one another. Since we recorded this interview in the same location, at the same level, using the same mic, this is the option we'll go with. When this is set to independent, the peak levels of each individual clip is used to define the adjustment to that clip. This is a good option to use if you're trying to normalize a series of clips with very different starting levels, like sound effects. Click Normalize. Instantly, we see an amplitude change in the waveform. Let's play the dialogue track back and watch the meters.
So right now, I'm in a ghost town called Nelson, Nevada. It's also known for alien activity. For the past 80 years,
most of the dialogue now plays back with consistent levels and is averaging between -10 and -15 on the meters. You will, however, notice a few clips peg the scale at -2 dBFS.
They stop, they get out.
Play back the first two interview clips.
So right now, I'm in a...
And notice these clips peak at -2. These are called transient peaks, but because we set a maximum level, the peaks will never go above -2 dBFS and therefore will not distort. And while these two clips are technically legal, they are still too loud in comparison with the rest of the interview. Hold down the Command key or Control key and select them both. In the Audio tab of the inspector, set the volume input field to 0. When you set a clip's volume to 0, you are basically returning the clip's volume to the original level it was recorded at. So two clips can have a starting point of 0, but still have very different volume levels. In the case of these first two clips, the mic might have been placed closer to the subject, or perhaps the subject just spoke a bit louder in that particular take. If you play back starting from the second interview clip and play past the third interview clip, you'll see on the meters and hear on your speakers that they are now relatively the same volume.
It's also known for alien activity. For the past 80 years, for reasons inexplicable.
In addition to balancing the dialogue, you want to pay special attention to the edit points across your dialogue track. Depending on where you made your cuts, it's possible to hear clicks or pops at the edit point. A fairly common way to mitigate this is to use audio fades. Move the playhead to any cut point in the dialogue and zoom in. Move your mouse pointer over the audio clip and two audio fade handles appear in the upper corners. Dragging on them will create a linear fade with the duration appearing in the tooltip. For dealing with clicks or pops, fades with 2 to 4 frame durations will often suffice. What is especially cool about these fades is you can drag on the center dot to change the curve shape to control the speed at which the audio fades in or out. Next, we'll work on the music. Click the solo button so that you can hear it along with the dialogue. Because we lowered the volume of this music clip in an earlier lesson, select the clip, then reset the volume in the inspector by clicking the Reset button. Press Shift-Z to zoom out, then play back the music while watching the meters. The volume is averaging around -15 dBFS, which is a good starting level. However, when you hear the music combined with the dialogue, it's too loud and overwhelms what's being said.
So right now, I'm in a ghost town called Nelson, Nevada.
We're going to use keyframes to control the music level under the interview section. To make it easier to focus on the music clip, drag on the boundary line that separates each track to make it larger. Let's also make the dialogue track smaller. Position the playhead at the start of the first interview clip and zoom in. Here's where we want to set our first keyframe. With the Option key held down, or the Alt key on Windows, click directly on the volume line at the playhead. A red dot will appear. This is an audio keyframe. In order to have a volume change, you need at least 2 keyframes at different values. Move the playhead backward by 6 frames by typing -6, return. Option or Alt-click to create another keyframe. Now select the second keyframe. It'll turn red. Drag downward until the tooltip reads -7 dB. As indicated by the sloping line, the music level fades down to -7 dB and stays at that level until the end of the music clip. Let's play that back to hear the change.
So right now I'm in a ghost town called Nelson, Nevada.
To control the rate of change, just drag right or left on the keyframe. Hold down the Shift key to constrain the mouse movement to only horizontal movement, then drag the first keyframe to the left to create a slower fade in volume. Toward the end of the music, you can tell by the waveform that the music gets louder. That happens at roughly 29 seconds when the piano note comes in.
And end up here.
Set a keyframe before the note, then move the playhead back 6 frames by pressing the left arrow key 6 times. Set another keyframe here. This keyframe locks the volume level to the level of the previous keyframe. Drag downward on the 4th keyframe until the value in the tooltip reads -12 dB, and play that back.
5 and end up here. They stop, they get out, they take a break, and
take a few minutes to go through the rest of the timeline to add keyframes and audio fades to your clips. In the next lesson, we're going to jump into the world of motion graphics and visual effects using the Fusion page.